guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle Saga and I am the crafty chick behind Shell's Beads. Today we are going to get full on into the Halloween spirit and create a cup with one of my favorite sayings this season, Witchy Woman. I designed this cup around a decal that I found on Etsy from ChocolateRabbit Designs, and it was just a spooky witch's potion label, and I thought I would pair it with something a little bit more glamorous and just kind of create a whole fun witchy vibe. So this is the cup that we are going to be creating today, guys, and as you can see, it's got a ton of fun sparkle to it, and my favorite is going to be showing you guys my technique for this Waterslide decal. So before we get started, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of my subscribers. This has meant the world to me, creating this YouTube channel and being able to bring you guys super fun Tumbler and crafting content. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to my peachy exclusive sisters on Facebook. These ladies inspire me daily and I could not do this journey without them. So if you guys are ready to get started, let's jump in. To get started, guys, you're going to need a fully prepped and sanded tumbler. I'm using a 20-ounce skinny from MakerFlo Crafts, and I have sanded and base coated with 3 coats of Rust-Oleum 2x flat black. There you're going to need 5 milliliters of epoxy mixed up so we can use the epoxy method. And for this, we are going to be using Mistress of Evil from PDB, and one of my favorite hollow chunkies in Midnight from Glitter Delight. We're going to be doing the epoxy method to apply these glitters. So I'm going to take about 2.5 milliliters of that 5 milliliters and apply it to my cup. Normally I would apply less epoxy than that, but because I have that chunky mix, I want to make sure that it lays really flat so we don't have to do a ton of sanding later. If you're having a hard time spreading the epoxy, you can warm your cup up. I have a little heater that I actually used to have from Jamberry that I use to heat my cups up with. Once your cup is coated in that coat of resin, we're going to move on to our glittering. I'm going to take the chunky Midnight and I want to create kind of like sparse little areas where I have this concentrated. I do not want to coat the whole cup in this. This is going to very much be an accent color. And I want to make sure that I leave enough spots for our Mistress of Evil to kind of be the main show. Once I have this laid down, I am going to move right in to adding the Mistress of Evil. Now we're going to move in with Mistress of Evil, and this is a finer cut glitter, so we are just going to sprinkle this all over the cup quite generously. There's no need to be careful with this because this is the final color of glitter that we are going to be using in this cup. Make sure to get the bottom. If you are not somebody who does the tape off method, I personally like to have the bottoms of my cup look nice. And then I'm going to tap off pretty aggressively so that I know where I have any bare spots. And I'm going to come right in with a second sprinkling just to make sure I have all of my areas covered. Once we do this, we are going to use the parchment paper method to just make sure that all of our chunky glitter is as flat as we can get it before putting it on our turner to cure. As you can see here, I'm also doing kind of a rolling pin method where I lay my parchment paper down and I roll it across. As long as you don't drag, it should be good to go. Once that layer has cured for 2 to 3 hours, I'm ready to move into my first coats of epoxy. I'm using 30 milliliters of Tumbler epoxy from the epoxy resin store, and you just want to make sure that you're getting a nice even coat for these first couple of layers. If you do find that some of your chunky glitter is sticking up, you can always spray seal this cup ahead of time. Once we have this cup done, we're going to let it cure for 24 hours and then move into sanding. As you can see here, I did have some spots where the glitter just didn't lay flat even after 2 coats of epoxy. So I am going to be coming in with a 160 grit sanding block, and I'm just going to be taking care of those areas so that we have a perfectly smooth cup. That bottom rim, you want to make sure that you get that very well so that you don't have any problems with it later. And my top rim as well, because we want to expose a little bit of that stainless steel so that the rest of our coats of epoxy can create a seal. We are now ready to start our foil striping. You can see that I have the sanded areas. It is not necessary to epoxy over this before you do this step because we're just going to be laying down foil using the glue stick method. So for this, I am going to be using this beautiful purple foil that I got off of Amazon. It came in a multicolor pack and it was the perfect accent color for this cup. I feel like it was the perfect shade of Halloween purple, and it's going to give us that really nice kind of glammed up look. We're also going to be using a Craft Bond craft glue stick. This is different than your average glue stick from the school supply area. I'm also going to take a really worn brush so that I can brush off any additional foil that might get on other areas. To start off, we need to take some measurements. So for this, I need to wrap my flexible measuring tape around the cup to get our circumference. I came in at roughly 9.5 inches. So that is what I am going to use to divide. I didn't have a good way to do this, guys, so I just kind of played around with it. First, I divided it by 5, then I divided it by 7, and I was able to get 1.35 inch segments by dividing 9.5 by 7. From here, we're going to just map it out onto the cup. I am using a Sharpie marker to just lay some guide marks down. And since we know we need to go every 1.35 inches, that is what I am doing here. When I make my tick mark, I'm going to then start at that tick mark to keep measuring out sections until I have gotten to the end. Now that I have all my tick marks placed, we're going to take some washi tape to just kind of mask off where we want to be so we can have kind of a straight line to start with. I am placing my tape to the left of that tick mark. That will ensure that we get even sections to work off of. I'm going to do this all around the cup, and then we're going to be ready to add our glue. Now that we have our tape sections all mapped out, we're going to come in with our Craft Bond glue stick, and using the edge of the glue stick, we are going to draw a line following on the right side of the tape all the way to the rim of the cup. I keep this line between 1/4 and 1/2 inch, and it doesn't have to be perfect because that ends up contributing to that grungy look. Once we have the glue line down, we're going to come in with a piece of foil and we're going to start laying down our foil. This is going to be an extremely messy process. You will get foil everywhere. I'd like to say there is an easier way to do this, but there really isn't. And whether you're using the foil sheets or the flake, it's probably going to get everywhere. As you can see, I'm laying it over that sticky tape line that, sticky glue stick line that I have. And I'm just tamping down with my finger so that I make sure I get all of those exposed glue spots. From there, you will have excess. And as you can see, I kind of just use my fingers to manipulate that. I'm scraping off, using my fingernail, moving material back onto that line to make sure I have it all covered. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to come in with my paintbrush and remove as much of the excess as possible. You are going to have a considerable amount of fallout. that is on either side of your line, which we will take care of in the final step when we have all of our foil applied. You're going to continue laying down glue and foil in the same way, keeping it as kind of grungy as possible. This does not need to be a pinstripe straight line. As you can see, I tried a couple different methods to laying it down to try to eliminate the mess, but guys, just roll with it because it's a messy process. I will say I had sparkly glitter bits or foil bits all over me by the time I was done, and I called it a fashion accessory. When we get done with this, I will show you how to clean up that excess foil between the lines. Now that we have all of our foil lines placed, we're going to remove the tape, and using a diaper wipe, we are going to wipe in between each of those sections to remove all of that excess foil. Looks like a hot mess right now, but trust me, when we are done with the diaper wipe, we will have beautiful foil lines. Guys, unfortunately my footage of epoxying over this got deleted, but you do need 1 coat of epoxy before moving into your decals. To make our Witchy Woman decal, you're going to open up Cricut. Make sure you have the Mitoos font downloaded, which I will have linked and listed in the description box below. After you type out Witchy Woman in your text, we're going to resize it to 3.5 inches wide, and the height will auto-populate. We are going to be adding an offset, which will be 0.08. We're going to hit enter and then hit OK, and you'll see our offset appear. We are going to change that offset color to silver, which will be the color we are cutting out. From there, we just want to group this together so that we can move it all on the canvas. And I'm going to import an image into the design space that I purchased off of Etsy. These will be the star elements that we are using, and I will have where I got them linked and listed below. Cut it out of black vinyl and silver textured vinyl, and you will be ready to move on to the next step. Guys, we're going to be creating the Waterslide image in Google Docs. I go over this in depth in my previous tutorial, which you can check out here. So I'm not going to go into detail about this. And from there, we will be ready to start creating our background for our Waterslide. Once you have your Waterslide printed, make sure to seal it 3 times with Krylon Triple Thick and let dry completely. For this step, you're going to want to cut a 4" by 4" square of white vinyl on Cricut and weed it and mount painter's tape to the back so we have a flat surface to work with. From here, we're going to be taking Tim Holtz Turquoise, Purple Twilight, and Valencia, I believe. I will have all of it linked and listed below in the description box, so no worries. We're going to take 91% alcohol, and we are going to paint onto the surface of our vinyl. As you can see here, I am dipping in a little bit of the alcohol ink and using the 91% alcohol to move my color around. I will also be adding enough to kind of puddle it and using a straw to kind of blow it around and add some interest. I'm going to do this for each of our colors, cleaning the brush in between. Keep in mind, guys, that palette is activatable. I think that's a word. So you can use what you have left on that palette before adding new color. As you can see, I'm moving into the Purple Twilight, and I'm just doing random splotches of the colors, then coming in with the alcohol to further move that color around. I'm also using my straw technique to blow. Excuse the hat in the way, guys. I forgot I was wearing a baseball cap when I was filming this, but hopefully you get the idea. We're going to come last into our turquoise, and we are going to just repeat that same process until we fill up all of the white space. It's okay to tap that color into anywhere that you might need a little bit, because it'll just add interest and kind of blend at those little areas. Once we have all of our color applied, and all of it looking the way we want, we're going to let it dry for just a few seconds and then come in to do one of my favorite techniques. We are going to be speckling this background by just using alcohol. We're going to load that brush that I have with some alcohol and tap on the brush to create droplets of alcohol that fall off and onto your piece. As you can see, the alcohol ink wants to resist where that alcohol drops are falling, so it creates a really nice mottled type watercolor feel. You're going to let that dry for just a few seconds, and once it's fully dry, we're going to wet the surface with some water. Keep in mind, guys, this will not hurt the vinyl. It may make the backing paper a little bit wet, but that is not a problem. The vinyl and the alcohol ink are perfectly safe to use with water. I pull off just a little bit of the backing, and I'm going to keep it on for as long as possible so that I can slide this so that I have the best, flattest application that I can get. Alternatively, you could mount your vinyl to the cup and do this, but this was just the method that worked best for me. Once I have that on, I'm going to take my silicone squeegee tool, which you see me use in any of my Waterslide videos, and I'm just going to make sure that everything is laying as flat as possible. I'm going to continue to pull that backing paper out until we have the image completely loaded. I'm going to blot off any excess water, and then we are ready to apply this decal. You don't want it to dry completely because you still want it to be a little flexible so that we can wrap it on the cup. Take your very sharp blade and pick up your corner with trying to do as minimal damage to the water slide as possible. Hindsight's 2020, I probably would have left it on a little bit more of the backing paper so that I could have had a little bit more to work with. I'm going to peel back just about a ½ inch, and this I eyeball, guys, because it's just easier for me to do that than to measure. However, what I normally do is measure any second decal that I'm placing to make sure that they line up properly on the opposite side of the cup. Because this Waterslide decal was still partially damp, I come back in with my squeegee tool to make sure everything is bubble free. As you can see, here is the look that we will now have. To finish this cup up, we're going to be adding some really pretty glitter accents that I just think tie this whole design together. Taking 20 milliliters of my Tumbler epoxy, we're going to come in with Enchanted Forest from Glitter Delight and Whimsical Bliss from Glitter Heart Company. We're going to take a little bit of the Whimsical Bliss into our medicine cup, and using this really cool spoon that I got from Woody's Goodies in an order, I'm just going to tap on around that border to this decal. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is to kind of help blend those edges and give just a little bit more interest to that background image without anything kind of overkill or taking away from the design itself. Once you're happy with the amount of glitter you have on there, we are going to move into adding that Enchanted Forest. I'm going to take the Enchanted Forest and just taking little fingerfuls, I'm going to pinch the glitter and sprinkle it around the bottom, kind of fading it up into the cup, but I don't want to go any higher than about an inch or so. I'm going to come in from the top and do the same thing. And then we are going to let this layer cure for about 4 to 6 hours. And then we are going to add our coats of epoxy on top. Before I added my epoxy, I came in and just gave a light sand to make sure that all of those areas at the top and bottom of the cup were as flat as they could possibly be. There's only one little coat of epoxy on here, guys, so be careful that you're not sanding down too far into that glitter. I do that both on the top, and I also take this opportunity to take my knife to kind of scrape off any excess. Keep in mind, guys, I am applying almost feather light pressure here because there is not a lot of epoxy between the glitter and the sanding block. While that is off to the side, I am going to also take this time to apply my Witchy Woman decal. For that, we're just going to be layering this offset. I'm going to mount the thinner Witchy Woman text onto my transfer tape and then layer it over my textured metallic vinyl. I chose silver and black because it really kind of helps to offset all of that purple and blingy colors that we have going on. Once we have this ready, I am also going to weed out my stars. So for this, guys, we don't want the centers of the stars. We just want that outline. So very carefully, I came in and weeded all of those centers out. I'm going to take those stars and apply them in a diagonal fashion with a few groupings in between Witchy and Woman, and then applying the rest of the stars to the top left-hand corner, kind of cascading down towards the right-hand corner. Once all of our star decals are on, I do come in with a layer of polyacrylic and a very soft craft brush, and I brush on a thin layer. This helps to seal in all of that textured vinyl so we don't have any lifting or bubbling when we apply the epoxy. Unfortunately, I am all out of CC DIY's Quick Coat, which would be what I would normally use to let this lay flat. Once I have that coated and it has dried, we are ready to move into our epoxy. Once that layer of polyacrylic is dry, we are ready to add our last coats of epoxy. This cup did take me about 4 coats to get it completely smooth, and I used about 15 to 20 milliliters per coat. I also made sure in between each layer to torch after the epoxy was applied. I do also wait about 10 minutes just to make sure that the epoxy has completely off-gassed. This to me is important so that you don't risk getting any bubbles in those final coats. Once we were done with it curing for 24 hours, this cup was done. I had so much fun creating this for you guys, and this is probably one of my favorite cups of the season. I think it has tons of color, but yet tons of spooky vibes as well. So I'm really happy, and I cannot wait to see what you guys make doing this tutorial. Make sure to tag me on social media, and if you enjoy this video, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment below, and don't forget to hit that bell button so you never miss a minute of the fun. Until next time, guys, stay creative.